Find another seat. This one is mine. You're sitting in my seat. Then call someone. I already did.
Whitaker had already placed one hand on the armrest of seat 2A when the woman in 2B lifted a camel-colored coat and dropped it across the cushion as if claiming land. "That seat is taken," the woman said, not looking up from the boarding pass on her phone. Nia paused in the narrow first-class aisle of Meridian Atlantic Flight 41 seat, the cabin still smelling faintly of citrus cleaner and jet fuel from the open forward door. Behind her, passengers shifted with the impatient rhythm of people who had paid too much, arrived too early, and believed discomfort should belong to someone else. She was 28, brown-skinned, in a charcoal travel suit softened by white sneakers, her curls pulled into a low knot, with a silver clip her father had given her after her first board presentation. Her boarding pass, printed and folded because she trusted paper more than apps at gates, read 2A in clean black type. "It's mine," Nia said. She kept her voice even and held out the pass. "I boarded with Group 1, Seat 2A. The woman finally looked at her. The name tag from a resort conference still hung crooked on a lanyard. Vanessa Pike, Executive Guest Relations. Her eyes moved from Nia's sneakers to the canvas tote on her shoulder, then to the boarding pass without taking it. "Sweetheart, they move people around all the time. This section is full fare first. You may want Comfort Plus back there." A man across the aisle lowered his tablet halfway. Ellie, the flight attendant at the galley, a young black man with a neat mustache and a coffee carafe in his hand, glanced over but did not step in yet. Nia noticed that. She noticed everything when people decided too quickly. The coat on her seat was not expensive enough to matter. But the gesture had the polished confidence of someone used to having staff make her assumptions true. "I'm not asking for Comfort Plus," Nia said. "I'm asking you to move your coat." Vanessa gave a tight little laugh meant for the cabin, not for Nia. "I'm traveling with my husband. He's up front speaking with the crew. We were promised these two seats together. There's clearly been a mix-up." The word mix-up landed where words like that usually landed, on Nia's shoulders instead of the system that could verify it. She looked past Vanessa to the seat display above the row. The small digital plate glowed 2A and 2B. Her father had helped finance one of Meridian Atlantic's terminal upgrades 5 years ago, but Nia had not used his name at check-in. He had not used the family concierge line, had not even let the foundation book the flight. She was traveling as herself after 2 days in Seattle reviewing a youth technology grant, carrying a tote with student thank you cards and a folder full of unsigned partnership notes. "Then let's ask the crew to check the manifest," Nia said. Vanessa's mouth flattened. "That's exactly what I'm trying to avoid. We don't need to delay boarding because someone won't be reasonable." The man with the tablet looked down again, then looked back up. Nia caught the movement. He had heard enough to know what was happening, but not enough yet to decide whether hearing required action. The flight attendant set the carafe down and walked over with his service smile already strained at the edges. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Vanessa answered before Nia could. "Yes, she's in the wrong cabin and she's refusing to move. My husband and I were assigned these seats." Nia turned toward him, offering the boarding pass. "My seat is 2A. She put her coat on it before I sat down." The attendant took the pass. His name pin read Marcus. His eyes flicked over the paper, then toward the tablet mounted by the forward closet where crew verified upgrades, seat swaps, and special service notes. Before he could move, Vanessa leaned toward him and lowered her voice in the theatrical way people did when they wanted everyone nearby to hear restraint. "I understand you have to be polite," she said, "but people buy certain fares for a reason. You can't have random upgrades causing a scene." Nia felt a familiar old heat rise behind her ribs, the kind that had nothing to do with embarrassment. At 16, she had watched a museum guard ask her father whether he was waiting for a delivery entrance while donors walked past him with champagne. He had not raised his voice then. He had only handed over the trustee's packet and said the guard should read names before reading clothes. Nia had hated his calm for years before she understood the labor inside it. Marcus checked her pass again. Miss Whitaker, give me just a moment." Vanessa stiffened at the name, but not in recognition. More like irritation that the crew member had used it with respect. "Why are we stopping boarding over this?" "We're not stopping boarding," Marcus said, though the line behind Nia had already begun to stall. "I'm verifying the assigned seat." A second crew member emerged from the cockpit area. Older, white, with silver hair tucked into a tight bun and a purser's wings pinned above her scarf. She listened to Marcus for 3 seconds, then looked at Vanessa's coat, Nia's paper pass, and the passengers bottlenecked in the aisle. Vanessa saw authority arrive and changed her posture at once. "Thank you," she said to the purser. "This passenger is blocking the aisle and making everyone uncomfortable." The purser's gaze settled on Nia, then on the tote at her shoulder, then on the boarding pass in Marcus's hand. Her expression did not harden exactly. It organized itself around the easiest version of the story. "Mom," the purser said to Nia, "we may need you to step aside while we sort this out." Nia did not move. Not backward, not forward. She only extended her hand for her boarding pass, and Marcus, after a small hesitation, returned it. "I'll step aside when you ask both passengers to step aside," Nia said. "My assigned seat is under her coat." The forward cabin had gone quieter now, not silent, just attentive in the way a place becomes when people are deciding whether the inconvenience is the woman being wronged or the wrong itself. The purser looked toward the open aircraft door, where a gate supervisor had appeared with a scanner in one hand and a radio clipped high on his vest. "We need this aisle clear," the gate supervisor said. "Then verify the manifest," Nia replied. Vanessa folded her arms. "This is unbelievable." The supervisor reached for Nia's pass without asking whether he could take it. She let him see it but did not release the paper. His thumb hovered near the barcode, and for the first time Nia noticed the thin red maintenance tag hanging from the cockpit side printer tray. The crew tablet beside the closet blinked twice, then refreshed to a gray screen with a small spinning circle. Marcus noticed it too. The gate supervisor scanned Nia's boarding pass. The device chirped once, then gave a lower tone that made him frown. He scanned again. Behind him, the jet bridge agent said something into her radio, too low for the cabin to catch, but the words seat control and manual hold came through clearly. The purser's professional smile disappeared by a fraction. "What does it show?" The supervisor did not answer right away. He looked from the scanner to Nia, then to Vanessa's coat still spread across 2A like a flag. "Boarding is paused," he said. A ripple moved through the aisle. Someone sighed. Someone else asked if they were going to miss their slot. Lily kept her eyes on the seat that belonged to her. Marcus reached slowly for the coat, but Vanessa's hand shot out and held it in place. "Don't touch my things," Vanessa snapped. The supervisor lifted his radio. "Flight 418 is under seat control freeze until we reconcile first-class assignments." Only then did Nia look toward the cockpit door, where the captain had stepped out and was taking in the frozen aisle, the disputed seat, the black woman still holding the boarding pass. No one had wanted to read carefully the first time. The word freeze did not sound dramatic inside the aircraft. It sounded procedural, almost dull, the kind of word that lived in manuals and checklists until it reached people who needed a plane to move. Its supervisors stepped back toward the forward galley, with his scanner pressed close to his chest, as if the device had become evidence instead of equipment. Behind Nia, the boarding line compressed another inch, wheels bumping shoes, shoulder bags brushing sleeves, impatience becoming a weather system with no place to go. The captain came fully into the cabin. He was a tall man in his early 50s, with reading glasses tucked into the pocket below his wings and a calm that seemed less natural than practiced. "I'm Captain Rourke," he said, addressing the space more than any one person. "We're going to reconcile the seating issue before anyone else boards. I need the aisle clear enough for my crew to work." Vanessa released a laugh that had lost its shine. "Captain, that is exactly what I've been trying to tell them. Husband and I were assigned to these seats. She's refusing to cooperate." Nia watched the captain's eyes move to the coat on 2A. He saw it. He also saw Vanessa's hand still resting on the sleeve, guarding fabric that had become a claim. Marcus stood beside the forward closet, one finger hovering near the crew tablet, waiting for the system to return. The purser, whose name Nia could now read as Elaine Porter, had folded her hands at her waist in a posture that looked neutral from a distance and defensive up close. "My boarding pass says 2A, Nia said. "The gate scan accepted me at boarding. The problem started when Miss Pike placed her coat on my seat and said I belonged in Comfort Plus." A few heads turned at the exact wording. Yes's cheeks colored, but she recovered quickly. "I did not say she belonged anywhere. I said there may have been an upgrade confusion, because these seats were promised to my family. There's a difference." "There is," Nia said. She did not add that people often survived by hiding cruelty inside differences. Elaine took a small step forward. Mrs. Whitaker, the immediate issue is that boarding has been interrupted. We need your cooperation so operations can verify the cabin. Nia looked at her. You keep saying my cooperation. You have not asked her to remove the coat from the assigned seat being disputed. That landed harder than Nia expected. Not because it was loud, but because it named the shape of the decision. Marcus glanced down at his shoes, then back up. Across the aisle, the man with the tablet finally locked his screen and placed it on his lap. The gate supervisor cleared his throat. A system is showing a manual exception on 2A and 2B. Seat control pushed a freeze because the names don't reconcile with the last gateside change. Then pull the manifest, Captain Rourke said. I'm trying, the supervisor replied. The tablet is lagging after the freeze. I can get seat control on radio. Vanessa turned toward the captain with an expression of wounded patience. This is absurd. We have a connection in Newark. My husband is a Diamond Meridian member, and I don't appreciate being made part of some spectacle because someone printed the wrong pass. Nia almost smiled at that, not because it was funny, but because the accusation had found its costume. Someone. The wrong pass. A spectacle. Anything except a woman who had shown her document and been doubted before the scan ever failed. A man in a navy blazer pushed forward from the jet bridge entrance, breathing hard, his forehead damp from whatever call had kept him away. Vanessa, what is going on? There you are, Vanessa said, reaching for him. They're delaying the flight because of a seating mistake. The gate supervisor scanned the man's phone. Next time, the device chirped cleanly. Mr. Pike, you're 2B. Correct, he said. And my wife is 2A. The supervisor looked at his scanner again. No. Current record shows Vanessa Pike in 4C. Upgrade request waitlisted. Not cleared. For the first time, Vanessa did not speak quickly enough. Nia felt the cabin absorb the difference between belief and record. It did not clear the aisle. It did not move the coat. It did not undo the first look Vanessa had given her or the way Elaine had asked only one person to step aside. But something small and structural had shifted, like a latch finally catching where it should have caught from the start. Mr. Pike lowered his voice. Vanessa. I was told at the lounge, she said. They said they would handle it. Who said? Captain Rourke asked. Vanessa looked toward the gate supervisor as if he might supply a safer answer. A concierge agent. I don't remember his name. Marcus's tablet blinked back to life. Twice, then stopped, reading. Captain, there's a note on 2A. Elaine moved closer. What kind of note? Marcus hesitated, and Nia saw the hesitation become its own choice. His eyes moved from the tablet to her face, then to the captain. Do not displace designation. Corporate security verification required before any seat change. The gate supervisor looked sharply at Nia. This time he did not look at her clothes first. Mrs. Whitaker, is there a reason that designation would be on your reservation? Nia folded her boarding pass along its original crease. She had known the flag was there, though she had asked her father's office not to make a fuss with names or greeters. After a threat at a donor event the previous winter, the family security team had added travel protections that were supposed to stay invisible unless someone tried to move her. Yes, she said. There is. Vanessa gave a brittle laugh. Oh, now she has corporate security? Nia turned to her, finally letting the full weight of her attention settle. No. I had it before you put your coat down. Captain Rourke lifted one hand before Vanessa could answer. No one touches that seat assignment until security and seat control reconcile the record. Miss Pike, remove your coat from 2A. Vanessa's fingers tightened around the fabric, and for a moment the entire delay narrowed to that small refusal. Then, from 3D, a woman with gray braids and a red carry-on spoke without raising her voice. She told her to go back to Comfort Plus, the woman said. I heard it. The cabin did not erupt. It simply had one more fact than it had before. The woman in 3D did not look like someone who had planned to become part of anything. Her reading glasses hung on a cord against her sweater, and one hand stayed wrapped around the red carry-on handle as if she might still be able to leave the statement behind and return to being only a passenger. But her words stayed in the aisle. They attached themselves to the coat, to Vanessa's first smile, to Elaine's first assumption, and to the way Nia had been asked to move before the record had been checked. Vanessa turned in her seat. Excuse me. I heard you, the woman said. You told her this section was full fare first and said she might want Comfort Plus. I was standing right there with my bag. That is not what I meant. I didn't say what you meant, the woman replied. I said what you said. Nia kept her face still, though something in her chest eased by half an inch. Witnesses often did not arrive like heroes. Sometimes they sounded tired, annoyed at themselves, already calculating the trouble their honesty would cost them. Marcus tapped on the crew tablet again, then angled it toward Captain Rourke without exposing the screen to the cabin. Elaine Porter saw the movement and shifted closer, but the captain lifted 2 fingers, asking her to wait. Mrs. Pike, Captain Rourke said, remove the coat. Vanessa's husband leaned over her. Vanessa, just move it. She's making me look like I did something wrong, Vanessa whispered, but the whisper did not stay private. Nia heard it and understood then that Vanessa did not fear being mistaken as much as being seen. There was a difference. A mistake could be corrected with a clean sentence and a little humility. Being seen required looking back at the person she had tried to shrink and admitting that the shrinkage had been the point. Vanessa snatched the coat from 2A. The sleeve dragged across the cushion, knocking Nia's seatbelt buckle against the sidewall with a dry metal click. Nia stepped toward the seat, but Elaine put out a hand, not touching her, blocking with the authority of a gesture. We still need you to wait, Elaine said. For what reason? Nia asked. Security designation, Elaine replied. Until we confirm it, no one sits there. Captain Rourke glanced at her. It's a protected reservation, she said, and her voice tightened around the explanation. If there's a security flag, we need to make sure she is the protected passenger. The words were technically defensible. That was the problem with the best kinds of unequal treatment. They learned to borrow the clothes of policy. Nia could see the path forming. Vanessa's unsupported claim had been treated as possible truth. Nia's verified protection would now become suspicion until she proved herself again. Marcus spoke before Nia had to. Her government ID matched at the gate. Her boarding pass matched at boarding. The freeze came from an attempted change after she boarded. The gate supervisor looked up from his radio. Seat control confirms that. Annual change request was entered from the premium lounge desk 12 minutes before boarding closed. It tried to move Ms. Whitaker to 4C and clear Ms. Pike into 2A, but the Do Not Displace lock rejected it. That's why the record split. Vanessa's husband closed his eyes. Eltia turned toward Vanessa. You said you were promised these seats together. Vanessa's mouth opened, but no polished answer came out. The cabin air vents hummed above them, steady and indifferent. Somewhere behind row 6, a child asked whether the plane was broken, and an adult murmured that it was just a seating thing. Nia wished it were just a seating thing. She wished any of these moments ever stayed inside the small container people tried to put them in. Captain Rourke faced the gate supervisor. Who entered the lounge request? Agent ID shows L27, the supervisor said. Name attached is Brendan Cole. Elaine's eyes changed. Nia caught it because she had been trained by rooms that changed temperature without admitting why. Nia said. Elaine looked at her, then away. He works lounge services. That is not an answer. The captain's gaze moved to Elaine with more attention now. Did you speak with the lounge about this passenger? Elaine took a breath. Before boarding, I received a call that a Diamond member's spouse had been separated after a late aircraft swap. He told them we couldn't move a protected seat without clearance. And after that? Captain Rourke asked. I told them to resolve it at the gate if the seat opened. Marcus frowned. But it never opened. No, the supervisor said. The system blocked it. For several seconds, no one moved. The flight had not been frozen because a black woman had caused a scene. It had been frozen because 2 employees and 1 entitled passenger had treated her assigned place as negotiable until the system stopped them from making the story official. Nia felt the anger come then, clean and useful, but also the cost of holding it in a shape people could not use against her. I want a preservation note placed on this record, she said. The attempted seat change, the lounge call, the gate scan, and the witness statement. Elaine's expression hardened. Miss Whitaker, that is an internal process. No, Nia said, her voice still low. My reservation was targeted for an unauthorized change after I boarded. My protected travel flag was triggered. That involves me. Captain Rourke studied her for a moment. You're familiar with preservation procedure. Nia folded her boarding pass once more, the crease now soft from her thumb. She thought of her father's security director telling her that invisible protections only worked when someone respected the line before crossing it. She had asked not to travel under the Whitaker name because she wanted one quiet flight home. One afternoon without handlers or recognition or the weight of being somebody's daughter. I'm familiar with what happens when no one writes down the first version accurately, she said. The man with the tablet raised his hand slightly from 2D. I heard the comfort plus comment, too. And I saw the coat on the seat before Ms. Whitaker said anything. The gate supervisor nodded, suddenly busy in the humble way people became once responsibility had a paper trail. I'll enter a passenger disruption and seat integrity note. Not passenger disruption, Nia said. Seat interference and unauthorized reassignment attempt. Marcus looked at the supervisor. That is the better category. Elaine's cheeks flushed, but she did not argue. Captain Rourke stepped aside at last, giving Nia a clear path to 2A. Mrs. Whitaker, you may take your assigned seat while we complete the report. Nia sat down. The leather was cool beneath her, the buckle still turned from where Vanessa's coat had struck it. She straightened it with 2 fingers, not because it mattered, but because something in front of her needed to be put back the right way. And the gate supervisor's radio crackled. He listened, looked toward the jet bridge, and lowered his voice too late. Captain, corporate security is requesting that Flight 418 remain frozen. They want the lounge agent and purser statements before pushback. Elaine went very still. The request from corporate security moved through the cabin in pieces, not as an announcement. The gate supervisor stepped into the jet bridge. Captain Rourke lowered his voice with Elaine near the forward closet. Marcus remained by row 2 with the crew tablet held in both hands. His shoulders squared in a way that told Nia he understood the difference between witnessing a problem and becoming attached to it. Vanessa had gone quiet, but quiet was not the same as still. She was whispering to her husband, One hand pressed over her phone as if the device might overhear her before she finished shaping the story. Mr. Pike did not look angry anymore. He looked tired in a private, embarrassed way, the kind of that came from realizing a person you loved had made strangers necessary. Nia kept her tote beneath the seat in front of her and slid the folder of student letters deeper inside it, away from shoes, wheels, and the spill of other people's assumptions. Elaine returned first. Corporate security has asked us to collect statements before departure. This should only take a few minutes. From whom? Nia asked. Crew involved, gate staff, and passengers with direct knowledge. Nia looked past her to Vanessa. And the person who tried to occupy my assigned seat. Elaine's jaw worked once. Yes, Miss Pike as well. That correction cost Elaine something. Nia could see it. Not enough to call it accountability, but enough to show that the first version of the scene no longer belonged entirely to her. The gray-braided woman in 3D opened her purse and took out a receipt from a bookstore, then used the back of it to write her name and phone number before anyone asked. The man in 2D did something similar in the Notes app on his tablet. Marcus crouched slightly beside Nia's row, keeping his voice under the cabin noise. I need to ask whether you want medical or security support at arrival. Sometimes with protected reservations, they give the passenger options. I want the record preserved, Nia said. I want to land on time if we can, and I want no one describing this as a misunderstanding without naming the attempted seat change. Marcus nodded. I can write that. I said it. I will. His answer was simple, but Nia heard the risk underneath. Elaine was his purser. The airline hierarchy lived in small obedience in who wrote the first report, whose version sounded calmest, whose mistake got called a judgment call instead of a choice. Marcus's pen moved across a small irregularity form, and Nia noticed his hand was not entirely steady. He was young enough to still believe the right category could save the right truth if entered before the wrong one hardened. Captain Rourke stepped into the aisle. Ladies and gentlemen, we're completing a required documentation process before departure. We'll update you as soon as we have release from operations. A man in row 5 groaned. Over a seat? Nia did not turn around. The gray-braided woman did. Over someone trying to take one, she said, and then faced forward again, breathing through her nose as if that small sentence had taken more from her than anyone knew. The gate supervisor reappeared with a second person behind him, a woman in a Meridian Atlantic blazer with a tablet tucked against her hip. I'm Dana Sorrell, station duty manager, she said. She spoke to the captain first, then Elaine, then finally Nia. Ms. Whitaker, I apologize for the disruption. We're reviewing a lounge-side request that should not have been entered. Nia heard the shape of it immediately. A request that should not have been entered was clean. It had no coat, no comfort, plus remark, no purser asking the wrong person to step aside. It allowed the airline to make the system the offender and leave the people around it untouched. I appreciate the apology, Nia said. But it wasn't only lounge side. The request began with Miss X claim and continued when your crew treated my seat as questionable after I presented my boarding pass. Dana's eyes flicked toward Elaine. We'll review all interactions. Before pushback, that may not be possible in full, then at least preserve all statements before pushback. Dana looked at the captain, who did not rescue her from the answer. Yes, she said, we can preserve statements now. Vanessa's composure cracked. This is ridiculous. I made a request in the lounge because we were separated. That is not a crime. No one called it a crime, Nia said. You're acting like I attacked you. Nia turned then. Vanessa sat stiffly in 4C now, her coat balled in her lap, her conference badge twisted backward. For the first time, she looked less like a woman defending comfort and more like someone frightened that comfort had left evidence. You saw my body and the seat made more sense under your coat than under me, Nia said. Then you tried to make the airline agree. The sentence did not rise. It did not need to. Mr. Pike looked at the floor. Jane closed her eyes for half a breath. Dana typed something into her tablet with a precision that suggested the category had changed. Then the jet bridge phone rang. The gate supervisor answered, listened, and looked at Dana. Operations says Whitaker Holdings Security Council is on the line. They're asking whether the protected passenger is Nia Whitaker, daughter of Alton Whitaker. The name reached the cabin before anyone could soften it. Vanessa's face changed first, not with guilt, but with recognition of consequence. Nia looked down at the silver clip holding her curls, suddenly heavier than it had been all morning. For most of her life, Nia had watched her father's name arrive in rooms before she did. Alton Whitaker could turn a hotel lobby careful. Bankers revise their posture, make politicians remember words like partnership and community after forgetting them in budget meetings. He had built Whitaker Holdings from freight yards, port logistics, and the kind of infrastructure work people used every day without knowing who made it possible. Nia loved him. She also hated the way his name could make people discover manners they should have brought with them already. Dana Sorrell recovered first. Please tell Security Council we are preserving all documentation and will provide a formal incident packet after departure. The gate supervisor repeated the message into the phone, but his eyes stayed on Nia. Porter had stopped looking at her like a passenger with a complicated reservation. That bothered Nia more than the first doubt. The first doubt had at least been honest in its ugliness. This new attention came polished, nervous, suddenly full of titles no one had earned the right to use. Vanessa sat in 4C with her mouth slightly open. Whitaker Holdings, she said, as if the words might rearrange the last 20 minutes into a misunderstanding she could survive. I didn't know. Nia looked at her. You didn't need to. The captain took one step forward, his voice quiet enough to keep the cabin from turning into a theater. Miss Whitaker, do you want to deplane while we resolve this? No, Nia said. I want my assigned seat. I want the record preserved. I want this flight to leave when it can safely and properly leave. Dana typed, nodded, and spoke with the briskness of someone building a file under pressure. Understood. I'm placing an operational hold, not a cancellation. You need the lounge agent's statement, the seat control log, gate scan history, and crew observations attached before release. Marcus added, passenger witness contacts from 3D and 2D. Dana looked at him, and in that brief glance, Nia saw the cost arrive. Marcus had stepped beyond helpfulness into classification. He had named people who could complicate the airline's cleaner version. Yes, Dana said. Those two. Elaine adjusted her scarf. I want it noted that I followed protected seat protocol once the flag became known. Nia turned to her slowly. The cabin pressure system gave a soft mechanical breath above them, and outside the open aircraft door, the jet bridge creaked under someone's hurried steps. Once the flag became known, Nia repeated. Before that, I showed a valid boarding pass. Elaine's face tightened. There was a dispute between passengers. There was a passenger blocking my assigned seat with her property, Nia said. You treated that as a dispute only after I refused to accept her version. Captain Rourke did not interrupt. Dana's typing slowed, then resumed. The gate supervisor returned with a printed sheet still warm from the podium printer. Seat control timeline. Lounge request entered at 10:11. Boarding scan for Ms. Whitaker, accepted at 10:18. Manual reassignment attempted again at 10:23 after boarding had begun. Lock rejected it. Freeze triggered when scanner detected conflicting active claim at 10:26. After boarding had begun, Marcus said. Vanessa's husband looked at her. You went back to the lounge desk after they scanned us. Vanessa's eyes shone, but the tears looked more like anger than remorse. They told me there was a chance. I just asked them to fix it. Fix what? Nia asked. Vanessa swallowed. Yeah. Our seats. Your seat was 4C. The answer held the aisle for a long moment. It made the entire matter smaller and uglier. Not a broken system at first, not an impossible aircraft swap. A woman separated from her husband by 2 rows had seen a black woman in the place she wanted and decided the manifest should bend. Ina looked toward the jet bridge. Where is Brendan Cole? On his way from the lounge, the supervisor said. His manager is bringing him. Nia did not like the small relief that moved through Dana's face at the mention of the agent. Organizations loved a single employee who could absorb a failure. One person could be disciplined. One person could be described as acting outside procedure. One person could protect the training deck, the upgrade culture, the way high-status passengers learned which rules were soft if they pressed the right tone. I want the review to include why Miss Pike believed a protected seat could become available after boarding, Nia said. Dana met her eyes. It's fair. No, Nia said. It's necessary. A young white man in a lounge blazer appeared at the aircraft door with a manager beside him. Brendan Cole looked barely 30, his hair combed too neatly, his face already pale from whatever he had been told on the walkover. He held no scanner, no tablet, nothing to hide behind. Vanessa leaned into the aisle. Tell them what you told me. Brendan's eyes moved to Nia, then to Dana, then down to the printed timeline in the supervisor's hand. I told Miss Pike I could put in a request, he said. I didn't tell her it was approved. That's not true, Vanessa said. Brendan's manager touched his elbow, but he continued, voice thinner now. She said the passenger in 2A looked like an upgrade and that Diamond members shouldn't be split when upgrades get handed out randomly. I should have stopped the conversation there. Nia felt the words enter the record with a force no title could provide. Not daughter, not billionaire. Passenger in 2A. Dana stopped typing for half a second, then wrote faster. Captain Rourke looked toward the open door. This flight remains frozen until that statement is signed. Brendan signed his statement on the narrow counter beside the forward galley, the paper curling slightly where the printer heat had not yet left it. He wrote slowly, with the painful care of someone discovering that every word had weight after spending the morning treating words like tools for customer comfort. Vanessa watched from 4C with her coat folded hard across her knees. Her husband sat beside her now, though there had been no seat assignment allowing it. Dana had placed him there temporarily while the hold continued, a small mercy that made Nia notice how unevenly mercy was distributed. Captain Rourke read the statement without changing expression. You entered a manual reassignment request after Ms. Whitaker had boarded. Brendan nodded once. Yes, sir. Why? Brendan glanced toward Vanessa, then away. Miss Pike said she and her husband had been separated because an upgrade passenger was placed in 2A. She said the passenger didn't appear to be traveling with anyone and would probably be fine in 4C. The gray-braided woman in 3D made a small sound under her breath. Not quite disbelief, more like recognition arriving tired. Nia looked out the oval window. A fuel truck rolled past with its hose looped like a sleeping animal. A ramp worker in orange ear protection guided a baggage cart around a painted line no passenger ever thought about. The year-old outside the aircraft kept obeying markings. Inside, people had spent nearly half an hour arguing whether hers counted. Dana asked, did Ms. Pike identify any policy that entitled her to 2A? No, Brendan said. She said Diamond members are usually accommodated. Usually accommodated does not override a locked seat, Marcus said. Jane shot him a warning look. Marcus saw it and lowered his eyes to the statement pad, but he did not apologize. Nia caught the movement and felt an uncomfortable pull of gratitude. She did not want him punished for telling the truth. She also knew the file would be thinner without him. Vanessa leaned forward. I never said she didn't belong there because she was black. No one had said the word until she did. It sat in the first-class cabin with the stale coffee smell and the cooling leather and the little sealed glasses of water waiting in the seat pockets. Nia turned from the window. You said I looked like an upgrade, Nia said. You said this section was full fare first. You told the crew I was in the wrong cabin before anyone checked the record. You don't have to announce the rule you're using for people to see how you used it. Vanessa's eyes filled again. You're twisting this. I'm making it precise. Dana tapped her tablet once, saving whatever she had written. Ms. Pike, you'll have an opportunity to provide your own statement. For now, we need to finish the operational review. Captain Rourke checked his watch, then looked toward the cockpit. We're close to losing our departure window. The sentence changed the cabin's breathing. Delay had been an annoyance. Losing the slot turned annoyance into threat. People shifted. Phones came out. A few passengers started typing versions of the event that would leave out the parts they had not bothered to hear. Nia felt the old pressure to reduce herself for the convenience of the room, to say she was fine, to let the airline handle it later, to become gracious before anyone had become honest. Her phone vibrated in her jacket pocket. The screen showed her father's security counsel, but she let it ring through to voicemail. Then it vibrated again, this time with a text from her father. You do not have to carry this politely. Nia read it twice. The words brought back the museum lobby, the guard, the trustee's packet, and her father's hand steady on the envelope. For years she had thought his calm meant the insult had not reached him. Later she learned calm had been the box he built around rage so she would not have to be afraid of it. She typed back with her thumb. I'm not. I'm carrying it accurately. Dana approached her row, tablet held at her side instead of between them. Ms. Whitaker, operations can release the flight if we complete the preservation packet after landing, provided all involved parties remain available. Nia looked at Marcus, then at the witnesses in 2D and 3D, then at Brendan standing near the aircraft door with his manager. After landing, people scattered. Memories softened under corporate language, a statement that said seat interference could become seating confusion by dinner. No, Nia said. The packet gets locked before release. A man behind her muttered, of course. Captain Rourke turned toward the rear cabin. We're not debating the passenger's right to documentation. The authority in his voice helped, but Nia noticed how late it arrived. Dana's expression shifted from negotiation to calculation. If we miss the slot, we may sit another 40 minutes. Then the cost of the delay belongs in the report too, Nia said. Because the delay was created by an unauthorized seat change, not by my request to document it. Marcus's pen moved again. Elaine looked at Dana. We can take statements now and transmit from the gate system. 4 minutes. Dana exhaled. Do it. For the first time, Elaine moved quickly in service of the correct task. She collected the witnesses' names, Brendan's signed page, Marcus's crew note, the scan timeline, and Vanessa's statement, though Vanessa wrote only 3 tight sentences and pressed so hard the pen tore the bottom of the paper. Dana photographed each page into the incident portal. The gate supervisor attached the seat control log. Captain Rourke stood at the aircraft door until the final upload showed received. Then Dana's tablet chimed. She read the screen and went still. What is it? The captain asked. Dana looked at Nia, not Vanessa. Corporate security has escalated this beyond seat integrity. They're opening a protected passenger interference review, and they're asking that Miss not travel on this flight. Vanessa rose halfway from 4C. You cannot be serious. Nia sat back in 2A, the buckle straight beneath her fingers. The plane was still frozen, but the story had finally begun moving in the right direction. Vanessa remained half-standing, one hand gripping the armrest of 4C, the other clutching the coat that had started as a claim and had become something closer to proof. I paid for this ticket, she said, but her voice did not fill the cabin the way it had before. It thinned around the edges. You cannot remove me because she didn't like what I said. Dana Sorrell held the tablet against her hip and spoke carefully. Messrs. Pike, the decision is based on the attempted unauthorized reassignment of a protected passenger, the statements collected, and the operational impact created by that attempt. I didn't touch her, Vanessa said. Nia looked at the seat back in front of her, at the sealed water glass tucked into the pocket, at the tiny, printed warning about flotation cushions no one read until fear made every word important. She had learned that sentence before too. I didn't touch her. As if harm required a hand. As if being blocked, doubted, moved, rewritten, and made into a problem did not count unless someone left a bruise. Captain Rourke stepped into the aisle. Miss Pike, gather your belongings. Mr. Pike rose more slowly than his wife. Am I being removed too? Dana checked the tablet. No, sir. Evie. Corporate security has not requested your removal. You may choose to deplane with your wife, or you may continue in your assigned seat after we restore the cabin. The offer seemed to strike him harder than removal would have. He looked at Vanessa and toward Nia, but he did not meet her eyes long enough to turn the look into anything useful. Vanessa, he said almost gently, let's go. I am not walking off this aircraft like I did something dangerous. Marcus moved closer to row 4, not touching her bag, not crowding her. Please don't make the captain call airport police. The words changed her posture. Not because she was frightened of police, Nia thought, but because she had expected that threat to belong to someone else. Vanessa looked around the cabin, searching for sympathy in the people she had earlier treated as audience. Most had retreated behind phones, tablets, or the careful neutral faces of travelers who wanted the story resolved without being asked what side they had chosen. A gray-braided woman in 3D watched openly. Her name, Shia had learned when Elaine collected the statement, was Dr. Laverne Bell, retired pediatric dentist, flying to Newark to meet her first granddaughter. She had written 2 full paragraphs on the back of the bookstore receipt before Dana provided a formal form. Shia had seen the curve of her handwriting from across the aisle, firm despite the tremor in her wrist. Vanessa shoved the coat into her tote and stepped into the aisle. As she passed 2A, she slowed just enough for Nia to feel the temptation forming. An apology could have arrived there, thin and late but still capable of entering the record as human. Instead, Vanessa said, I hope this was worth delaying everyone. Nia turned her head. It was worth not letting you finish it. For a second, Vanessa seemed ready to answer. Then Captain Rourke said her name once, not loudly, and she moved toward the aircraft door with her husband behind her. Brendan Cole's manager stepped aside in the jet bridge to let them pass. Brendan did not look up. The gate supervisor followed them out, speaking into his radio about a passenger offload and cabin reset. The cabin released a breath it had been holding for the wrong reason. Overhead bins clicked. Someone whispered that maybe they would still make the slot. Someone else asked if the removed bags had to come off too. Captain Rourke answered that since Ms. Pike had not checked luggage under the active flight record, no bag pull was required. It was the kind of operational detail that would never appear in a viral retelling, but Nia respected it. Real consequences came with boring mechanics. Dana approached 2A again. This time she stopped at the edge of the row rather than leaning over Nia. Ms. Whitaker, the preservation packet is locked. Corporate security, customer care compliance, and station leadership have access. You will receive the incident number before arrival. I need the category read back. Dana glanced at the tablet. Protected passenger interference review, unauthorized seat reassignment attempt, passenger seat interference, and crew response review. Nia looked to Marcus. Crew response review includes the first request that I step aside. Elaine, standing near the galley with the witness forms in her hand, went rigid. Dana nodded. Yes. And the fact that Miss Pike was asked to move her coat only after several verification steps. Yes, Nia let the answer settle. It did not make her feel triumphant. It made her tired in a way victory often did when victory required convincing people to write down the obvious. Then I'm satisfied with the record for departure. Captain Rourke gave Dana a short nod, then turned to the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, we have released to continue boarding and expect to push as soon as final counts are complete. Thank you for your patience. The phrase, thank you for your patience, floated over people who had been patient, impatient, silent, helpful, resentful, and afraid of inconvenience in unequal amounts. Nia fastened her seatbelt. The buckle clicked cleanly this time. Marcus passed with a tray of waters and paused just long enough to place one on her console. I'm sorry, he said, low enough that it belonged to her and not the cabin. Nia looked at him. For which part? He swallowed. For waiting before I checked. It was not the whole apology, but it was an honest piece of one. Nia accepted it with a nod, not because he deserved to be freed from discomfort, but because he had named his delay without dressing it up as confusion. Outside the window, the jet bridge began to pull away. The aircraft shuddered lightly as ground power shifted, and the seat display above her row glowed 2A with the dull, steady confidence of a small fact finally allowed to remain itself. The flight did not become peaceful after the jet bridge pulled away. Peace would have been too generous a word for a cabin full of people recalculating the value of their own silence. It became orderly. Bags were stowed, boarding completed, the forward door sealed, and the safety announcement began with its practiced brightness while Flight 418 waited for its new slot. Nia watched Marcus demonstrate the belt, mask, and exits, his hands, steady now that the record had moved beyond one person's memory. Elaine Porter stood near the front during the announcement, chin lifted, scarf aligned, every inch the experienced purser who knew how to make a cabin behave. Nia could see, with a tired fairness she did not particularly enjoy, that Elaine was good at part of her job. She anticipated passenger needs, kept aisle timing clean, corrected a bin latch before it delayed pushback, and noticed when an elderly man in 1D needed help rotating his carry-on handle away from the hinge. Competence had been present the whole time. That was what made the earlier failure sharper. As the plane began its slow push from the gate, Dana Sorrell stepped on board one final time from the service stairs, handed Captain Rourke a folded document through the cockpit doorway, and came to Nia's row. "Incident number," she said, offering a printed slip. "The full packet is locked to corporate security, compliance, and station leadership. You'll receive the passenger copy after arrival, pending redactions of employee personal data." Nia read the number twice, MA 41882A0816. It looked too neat for what had happened, but neatness mattered if it kept the truth from being sanded down. "And Miss Pike? Rebooked pending review," Dana said. "Her diamond status privileges are suspended until customer conduct and security teams complete their assessment. Mr. Pike chose to deplane with her." Nia nodded, though the result brought no pleasure. Vanessa would likely tell the story as humiliation. Her friends might call it overreaction. Someone online, if the incident escaped into public view, would ask why Nia had not simply moved 2 rows to keep everyone comfortable. The old demand always found new language. Be flexible, be kind, be bigger, be smaller. Dana lowered her voice. "I also placed Elaine's crew response under review. Marcus's statement is attached separately, along with the passenger witnesses." At the galley, Elaine's hands tightened around the service cart handle. She had heard enough. He did not look away from Dana. "A review is not a consequence." "No," Dana said. "It's the process before one." That answer was not satisfying, but it was accurate, and Nia respected accuracy more than performance. She thanked Dana, folded the slip into the same crease as her boarding pass, and slid both into the inner pocket of her jacket. Dana left through the service stairs before the aircraft taxied, and when the door was secured again, a cabin seemed to shrink around the knowledge that the event was no longer only an event. It had become a file. The takeoff roll pressed Nia gently into 2A. Seattle blurred into gray pavement, wet service roads, and then cloud, the wing flexing as the aircraft climbed through a layer of white that looked solid until the plane entered it. She had always liked that moment as a child, the proof that something could look impenetrable from below and temporary from inside. Her father used to give her the window seat and pretend he needed the aisle for his knees. Later she understood he had been giving her the view. When the seatbelt sign remained on after climb, Marcus brought water to the first 2 rows and paused by Nia again. "Dr. Bell asked if you'd accept her contact card," he said. Nia looked across the aisle. Dr. Laverne Bell lifted a small cream-colored card between 2 fingers, not intruding, only offering. Nia accepted it with a nod. On the back, in the same firm handwriting from the statement Dr. Bell had written, "I stayed quiet too long at my first clinic job. Not today." The words found a place Nia had not guarded. She looked out the window before gratitude could become something visible enough for the cabin to use. The clouds had thinned, and sunlight moved over the wing in broken strips. Elaine came through after the seatbelt sign turned off, beginning service in first class with the practiced apology of extra attention. She stopped beside 2A. "Ms. Whitaker," she said, "I owe you an apology for how I handled the initial dispute." Nia waited. Elaine swallowed. "I should have verified your boarding pass and required the other passenger to clear the seat before asking you to step aside. I treated her claim as neutral and your document as something that needed more proof. That was wrong. It was the first apology that named the mechanism instead of the discomfort." Nia looked at the woman's face, at the fatigue around her mouth, at the fear under the professionalism. "Put that in your statement if you haven't already." Elaine's eyes flickered. "I will amend it. Then I hear you." Elaine nodded once and moved on, not forgiven exactly, not dismissed either. Behind her, Marcus opened the service cart, and the ordinary work of the flight resumed with cups, napkins, coffee, and the soft rip of foil from meal trays. Nia opened her tote and pulled out one of the student thank you cards from Seattle. A girl named Amaya had drawn a crooked circuit board with flowers growing from the wires. Nia held it against the window light and smiled despite herself. The plane was moving now, but the consequences had not finished boarding. By the time Flight 418 crossed over the pale grid of the Midwest, the cabin had settled into the strange intimacy of people who had shared a public wrong, and then agreed, without saying so, to pretend they had not. Meal trays came and went, window shades lowered. A movie played silently on a screen across the aisle, all chase scenes and bright explosions, while the actual force in the cabin was quieter. A printed incident number in Nia's jacket, a witness card tucked inside her book, an amended crew statement somewhere in the airlines system. Nia tried to read the grant folder from Seattle, but the letters kept pulling her away from the policy notes. Amaya's circuit board flowers stayed on top. Another student had written that the robotics lab smelled like hot dust and pizza because their coach kept the soldering station too close to the snack table. Nia smiled at that, then felt the smile fade. She had spent 2 days telling those students that systems could be redesigned when people understood where the current flowed. On the plane, she had watched adults pretend the current was invisible until a protected lock shocked them into looking. Her phone connected to the aircraft Wi-Fi long enough for a message from her father to come through. "Call when you land, proud of you. Angry too." Nia typed, deleted, and typed again. "I'm tired of proud being attached to this." The reply did not come for several minutes. When it did, it was shorter than his usual messages. "I know." She set the phone face down. That was the part people rarely understood. Public dignity became a compliment only after it had been demanded under pressure. They praised how composed she had been because they had not felt the effort it took to keep every word usable, every gesture clean, every breath from becoming evidence against her. She did not want a medal for surviving a seat that had been hers from the beginning. Dr. B. Bell crossed the aisle during the second beverage service, moving carefully while the cabin lights were dimmed. "May I sit for a minute?" she asked, touching the armrest of the empty 2B. Mr. Pike's departure had left the seat open, an absence with a shape. Nia nodded. "Of course." Dr. Bell lowered herself with a small wince and adjusted the hem of her sweater. Up close, Nia could see the fine tremor in her left hand and the careful polish on her nails, pale pink with one chip at the thumb. "I meant what I wrote," she said. "At my first clinic, there was a hygienist who kept getting the worst shifts. Same excuses every time. Scheduling, attitude, fit. I saw it before I admitted I saw it." Nia looked at the card still resting beside her water. It changed. "She left," Dr. Bell said. "Then the clinic acted like her leaving solved the tension. I have regretted that for 31 years. The confession did not ask Nia to comfort her, which made it easier to receive. You spoke today, late, but you spoke before the record closed, Dr. B." Bell gave a dry little laugh. "That sounds like something a dentist would understand. You can save a tooth if you get there before the infection reaches the root." Nia smiled despite herself, and for a moment the cabin became less like a file and more like a place where two women were simply talking above the clouds. Dr. Bell patted her own knee, preparing to rise. "Send you the report. Make sure my statement says I heard the exact words, not just that there was tension. I will. And make sure that young attendant doesn't get buried for telling the truth after hesitating. Hesitating is human. Covering up is the disease." That stayed with Nia after Dr. Bell returned to 3D. It stayed through the descent announcement, through the collection of cups, through Elaine moving past with a quieter face, and Marcus checking latches with a focus that seemed newly adult. The first consequence had removed Vanessa from the flight. The next one would decide whether the airline treated the incident as one woman's misconduct, one agent's lapse, or a pattern of softness around certain passengers and suspicion around others. As the aircraft dipped toward Newark, the clouds broke open to reveal runways, warehouses, service roads, and little strings of cars waiting at lights. Nia folded Amaya's card and placed it back in the tote. She took out the incident slip again and wrote 3 words on the back before the wheels touched down. Not just 2A. The landing gear struck pavement with a hard, honest jolt. Around her, passengers reached for phones before the plane had finished slowing. hungry to return to their own lives. Nia kept her hand over the slip until the aircraft turned off the runway, knowing that the seat had been restored, but the larger assignment had just been handed to her. Newark arrivals had the tired shine of every airport at the end of a long day. Polished floors, rolling bags, coffee cooling in paper cups, families searching over one another's shoulders. Nia stepped off Flight 418 with her tote against her hip and the incident slip in her jacket pocket. No one applauded, no one stared for long, and that suited her. Public scenes had a way of making the harmed person responsible for everyone else's discomfort after the harm itself had finished performing. Marcus stood by the forward door with Elaine behind him. "Thank you for flying Meridian Atlantic," he said to passengers leaving ahead of her, but when Nia reached him, he did not use the line. He held out a sealed envelope with her name printed across the front. Customer Care Compliance sent this to the gate before arrival. It has your passenger copy and contact instructions. Nia accepted it. "And your statement?" "Filed," Marcus said. He glanced toward Elaine, then back. "Amended once. I added the time I first saw the coat." Elaine's mouth moved as if she might speak. Then she waited until Nia looked at her. "I amended mine as well," she said. "I wrote that I placed the burden on you before verifying the obstruction. I also wrote that Marcus identified the correct category." That last sentence mattered. Nia could see Marcus trying not to react to it. Elaine had not erased her own failure, but she had also protected the person below her who had told the truth with less authority. It was not redemption. It was repair beginning in the only place repair ever could, with an accurate account of damage. "Thank you for writing it plainly," Nia said. Elaine nodded. "Plainly should not have taken me that long." At the gate, Dana Sorrell waited beside a man from corporate security, and a woman with a compliance badge clipped to the pocket of her navy blazer. Dana looked as if she had aged 2 hours and 6. "Ms. Whitaker, we have the incident packet, statements, seat control log, lounge timeline, and crew amendments. Vanessa Pike's travel privileges remain suspended pending final review. Brendan Cole has been removed from lounge duty pending investigation, not terminated today." "Good," Nia said. Dana blinked, surprised. "If he is responsible, deal with that," Nia said. "But if the lounge trained him to treat high-status pressure as a workaround, then firing only him would be dishonest." The compliance woman wrote something down. "We are opening a station-level review of premium accommodation practices." Ila opened the envelope and checked the pages while standing near the gate window, where Flight 41 sat connected to a jet bridge again, ordinary from outside. The category line read what Dana had promised: protected passenger interference, unauthorized reassignment attempt, passenger seat interference, crew response review. Dr. Bell's statement included the exact comfort plus comment. Ben from 2D had noted the coat. Marcus had documented his delay. Elaine had documented hers. For the first time all day, Nia felt the truth held by something larger than her own steadiness. Her father waited beyond security with no entourage, just a dark overcoat folded over one arm and a driver standing far enough back to pretend he was not watching everything. Alton Whitaker's hair had gone silver at the temples, and his face did what it always did when he saw she had been hurt. It softened before it hardened. "You all right?" he asked. "No," Nia said. "But I'm clear." He took that in, then nodded once. He did not ask whether she wanted him to call someone. That was another kind of love he had learned late and well. They walked toward the exit together. Near the moving walkway, Dr. Bell caught up with them, rolling her red carry-on. Nia introduced her, and her father shook the retired dentist's hand with both of his. "Thank you for speaking," he said. Dr. Bell looked embarrassed by the weight of his gratitude. "I waited too long in another life. I'm trying not to make a habit of it." Alton smiled, a small, real one. "That is a hard habit to break." Outside, the air smelled of rain, brake dust, and the food carts lined along the pickup curb. Nia placed the envelope in her tote beside Amaya's card. The first wrong had been corrected, her seat restored, the passenger removed, the record preserved, the witnesses protected in writing. But as she watched crews unload bags beneath the aircraft's belly, she understood that the more important repair would happen where passengers never looked: inside training rooms, lounge desks, upgrade queues, and the small, discretionary spaces where bias learned to call itself service. Her phone buzzed with an email from Meridian Compliance. Subject: Preliminary Corrective Actions, Flight 41. Nia did not open it yet. She slid the phone into her pocket and stepped under her father's umbrella, letting the rain tick against the fabric above them like a count being kept. 3 weeks later, Meridian Atlantic sent the final corrective packet to Nia's office, not to her father's. That detail mattered. The envelope arrived at the Whitaker Community Technology Foundation on a Thursday afternoon, while rain scratched at the old brick windows and a robotics team argued in the next room over whether a sensor could be blamed for what was clearly bad wiring. Nia let them argue for 2 more minutes before she opened the packet, because ordinary noise deserved not to be interrupted by another institution learning to say what should have been obvious. The findings were written in careful language, not evasive language. Vanessa Pike's premium status had been revoked for 18 months, with reinstatement conditioned on a customer conduct review. Brendan Cole received a final warning, retraining, and transfer out of lounge escalation duties, but the report also named the culture that had trained him to treat Diamond members' preferences as emergencies. Jane Porter was removed from purser duty pending a remedial review, and then reassigned only after completing bias response certification, protected passenger protocol training, and supervised flights. Marcus Reed received a formal commendation for accurate categorization after initial delay, a phrase Nia read twice because it did not make him perfect to make him worth protecting. The larger changes mattered more. Meridian froze all post-boarding premium cabin reassignment requests unless verified by seat control and the captain. Lounge agents lost the ability to enter manual requests against locked seats without supervisor approval. Crew training now included a rule that physical obstruction of an assigned seat had to be treated as the first operational fact, not as a personality dispute. Witness statements had to preserve exact language when discriminatory assumptions were alleged, not flatten them into passenger disagreement. Nia placed the packet beside Amaya's circuit board card. The girl's crooked flowers still grew from the drawn wires, bright pencil petals pushing through graphite pathways. For a moment, the 2 papers seemed to speak to each other better than any press release could. One showed what systems could become when designed with care, and the other showed what they did when no one admitted where the current bent. Her father called as she was reading the final page. "Did they send it?" "Yes." "And? They did more than I expected," Nia said. She looked through the window at the students in the adjoining lab, heads bent over parts trays, their safety goggles fogged from laughing too hard at their own mistake. "Not everything, but more than a courtesy apology." Alton was quiet for a moment. "Do you want to issue a statement?" "No." He accepted that without argument. "What do you want?" Nia touched the edge of the incident number, now clipped to the report like a small, stubborn artifact. "I want the Foundation's travel grant program to include rights training for students flying to competitions, not fear training, not how to make yourself smaller. Just what to document, who to ask, what categories matter, and when to insist on a record. That sounds like you already wrote the first page. I wrote 3 words on a landing slip. Sometimes that is enough." After they hung up, Marcus sent a message from an airline email address. He thanked her for asking that his statement stay attached to the file and wrote that he had applied for a training liaison role. Dr. Bell sent a photograph of her newborn granddaughter wrapped in a yellow blanket with one line beneath it, starting earlier with this one. Nia laughed at that, the sound small but real, and pinned the photo to the corkboard beside the robotics schedule. That evening, she stayed late to help Amaya's team test their machine. The sensor failed twice, then worked on the 3rd attempt after Amaya stopped blaming the part and traced the wire back to a loose connection under the board. When the little robot finally rolled forward, crooked but determined, the students cheered as if they had launched a satellite. Nia stood behind them with the Meridian packet tucked under one arm. She thought of seat 2A, of a coat dragged from leather, of a buckle turned right with 2 fingers. The flight had ended. The file had closed. Vanessa had not become a monster, and the airline had not become noble overnight. But a line had been named, a record had been kept, and a few people who once might have looked away now had instructions for what to do before silence hardened. As the students packed up, an email arrived from a regional scholarship director in Atlanta. Urgent concern about competition travel screening. Nia opened it at the lab table while the robot's wheels clicked softly against a cardboard wall. The message described 3 students flagged at an airport kiosk after their team credentials were questioned. and it asked whether the foundation could review the incident before the national finals. Nia read the first paragraph, then folded the Meridian report closed. Across the room, Amaya held up the repaired wire and grinned. Nia slipped the new email into a folder marked Travel Rights, turned off the lab's overhead lights, and left the workbench lamp burning over the robot's narrow path forward.